You've probably heard mixed reviews about the food on MSC cruises. Some say it's the worst at sea, while others love it. After a week on MSC Euribia, I'm here to settle the debate. Is the food really as bad as people say, or does it deserve a second chance? Stick around to find out our honest take on the main dining room and buffet experience. Ahoy travelers, it's Amy here to help you make your travel experience a success. Well, like many cruisers, I've heard many people make complaints about the food on board MSC ships. I've even heard some cruise content creators say that it's the worst cruise food they've ever had. Meanwhile, others say they like the food on MSC ships. So, what's the truth? Well, we recently returned from a 7-day cruise on MSC's Euribia. Knowing that the food on board is one of the most controversial subjects when it comes to cruising with MSC, we went in with an open mind, ready to make our own conclusions. MSC has 2 places to eat that are included in your cruise fare: the main dining room and the buffet. While we had heard that the specialty dining restaurants had really great food, we wanted to focus on the included food that so often gets a bad rap from cruisers. So we stuck to the buffet and the MDR. Now, much of the food found in both the MDR and buffet would be considered Mediterranean, with lots of pasta and seafood available. However, if neither of those are at the top of your list, there were other options as well. But North American cruisers need to go into their MSC cruise with the right expectations, as MSC is not a US-based company. Expecting American cuisine is part of why I think some cruisers end up making complaints about the offerings on MSC. Our designated restaurant was the Aurora Boreal restaurant, one of the 2 twin MDRs located in the aft of Deck 6. Our 2-person table was set with a crisp white tablecloth with a floral decoration, along with a bread basket, bread plate, utensils, and glasses for both water and wine. Embarkation night was our first night stepping into the MDR. It was well lit and felt very open and inviting. The bread was fairly good, although they do advertise it as fresh, and I'm not 100% sure I believe that it always was as that fresh, as we were at the early dining and our bread was never warm, and much of it was fairly hard. The focaccia was really good though. For my appetizer, I chose the eggplant parmesan, or aubergine as the Europeans call it. It was good, but they had left the skin on the eggplant, which needed to be removed in my opinion. It was really tough. Mom chose the fire roasted tomato cream soup and said it was good as well. For my main dish, I went with a pasta with seafood sauce. I really wasn't sure what to expect of the seafood sauce. Would it have actual pieces of seafood in it? What kind? Or would it just be kind of a seafood flavored sauce? It most definitely had seafood in it. There was a baby octopus, or a tiny octopus, right in the middle of the dish. It was a little off-putting. Now, I did cut off some of the tentacles and tried to eat them, but they were so chewy, really didn't have any flavor. It was kind of disgusting. I wasn't eating the head and beak for sure. Now, Mom chose the lamb for her main dish and liked it. For dessert, I went with the coconut pistachio d'Ascoi. I don't really know how to pronounce that. I'm pretty sure it's French. I don't do French. It was very light and not overwhelming at all. It was just sweet enough without being too sweet. I really enjoyed it. Mom chose the Australian chocolate cake with apricot filling and said she would get it again. I'm not sure how chocolate and apricot go, but she liked it. Night 2 was one of my favorite meals in the MDR. For our starter, Mom and I both chose the seafood and vegetable pot stickers. Now, while they were both good, I enjoyed the pot stickers better than the dumplings. For my main course, I chose the baby shrimp risotto. Now, after removing the rocket leaves and adding some salt and pepper, it was really good. I discovered I'm not a fan of rocket leaves and find them pretty bitter. Mom went with the spinach and ricotta ravioli, and she said it was really good. We both chose the white chocolate mousse cake for dessert and really liked it. It was moist and had great flavors. We decided that this was one of the best desserts we have ever had on any cruise ship. Our third night and first sea day was gala night. Now, while the main dining room looked the same, the menu for the gala dinner seemed a little elevated. I enjoy escargot when served in garlic butter with toast points, but I wasn't really sure how I would feel about them being baked in puff pastry, so I went ahead and chose to get a Caesar salad as a second starter just to be safe. Now I'm glad I did, as the escargot dish tastes mostly of puff pastry, really wasn't worth it, and Caesar salad is usually a pretty dependable choice. Mom got the Caesar salad as well. Mom and I both chose the roasted sea bass as our main course. The bass itself was fishy. They didn't cut the red out of the fillet, which is why it tasted so fishy. You have to cut that out. That's where the fishy taste comes from. Plus, the skin was on it. Now, leaving the skin on may be a Mediterranean thing. I wasn't that disturbed, but not cutting out the red in the fillet, that's just poor cooking in my opinion. Unfortunately, the sauce didn't have a lot of flavor, but the potatoes were good. For my dessert, I went with the After 8 sensation, which was a mint chocolate mousse cake, and it was really good. Mom had the baked Alaska. There was no presentation with that. They didn't come out with flaming baked Alaska before taking it back and cutting it up to serve. And that's something that we're used to seeing on Carnival. And personally, without the presentation, it's just cake and ice cream. Night 4 was a little hit and miss. For starters, Mom and I both had the New England clam chowder. As an American, I've had quite a bit of clam chowder, and this was not great. It was the thinnest that I've ever seen, and it was unexpectedly thin. The flavor was just okay. Mom went with the oven roasted prime rib for her main, which she said had good flavor, but then had a lot of fat and gristle that had to be worked around. I chose the Middle Eastern falafel as my main, and I really wanted to like this, but the fritters were dry and flavorless, and there wasn't enough sauce to make up for how dry they were. The hummus was okay, but I did have to add salt to that. I probably should have gone with the eggplant and pasta dish. Thankfully, the dessert made up for anything lacking from the rest of the meal. I went with the gâteau apéra. Once again, hopefully that's close to a correct pronunciation. And it was an almond biscuit with chocolate and coffee ice cream. It was really good. And I love the MSC gilded chocolate. Nice touch. They did that quite often on the desserts. Very fancy. Mom had the raspberry mousse cake, which she also said was really good. On day 5, we decided to try out breakfast in the MDR. Now, unlike dinner, we weren't in our assigned seats, nor were we given a private table. We were sat at a larger table with 4 others. Now, this is fairly typical for cruise lines, so I wasn't surprised. Unfortunately, though, due to the language barrier and the fact that the other people at the table all seemed to know each other, no one talked to Mom and me. It ended up making the meal a little awkward. Now, for my breakfast, I went with the eggs Florentine. I had missed that it was served on English muffins and thought it came on toast, which is why I got it. But the menu said toasted English muffins. I guess I just blacked out the part of the English muffin section. I don't like English muffins. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about them, but they're one of the only types of bread that I don't like. Now, I didn't get the eggs Benedict because they come on English muffins. I wish you could get them on rye toast instead, and maybe I should just ask sometime. Anyway, I did not like the eggs Florentine. I've never had it before, and I had assumed the spinach would be fresh spinach, but it was cooked and there was a lot of it, and there was like 0 salt in the dish. Mom had the MSC Express, which came with eggs, sausage, bacon, and hash browns, and I ended up eating her hash browns to help make up for the not finishing my meal. She didn't want them. Now, they did bring around juice at the beginning of the meal. They were in very small glasses, and I didn't realize that was all we were going to get for the whole meal, or I would have asked for more than one tiny glass. These were ridiculously small, maybe 4 ounces of juice. The waiters also came around early on with muffins and bread, and I wish I would have grabbed one of those as well. I was banking on actually liking my breakfast. The awkwardness of sharing a table with strangers you can't even speak to, the food being just okay, and Mom and I not being big on breakfast to begin with, we chose not to go back for breakfast in the MDR. That night, for what I think is the first time on any cruise, Mom and I ordered the same meal. For our starter, we chose the marinated goat cheese and grilled vegetable antipasto. The goat cheese was really good and worked really well with the vegetables. This is one of the best starters that I've ever had, and I would definitely get it again. As our main, we went with the cannelloni. Neither of us liked it that much. I'm not sure what kind of meat was in it. The menu literally just said meat, but the whole dish needed seasoning, and it was super soft. It was like something that would be given to old people who can't chew well or have lost a lot of their teeth. Mom said she also thought it was too rich. Now, I would not be getting that again. For dessert, we chose the chocolate duo cake. It came with a berry compote that added the perfect additional flavor. Now, except for dessert, Mom and I went with the same choices again on night 6. I forgot to take screenshots of the menu, so I can't remember exactly what kind of soup we had for a starter, but it was good. For our main course, we went with the chicken parmesan. It needed salt and more marinara sauce, but it was what you would expect from chicken parm. Nothing great, nothing bad, just regular old chicken parmesan. Mom chose the limoncello for her dessert and said it was really good, and she would definitely get that again. I went with the berry cobbler, which was good, but I wouldn't consider this a cobbler. It was a dump cake, as it didn't have that pie crust like a true cobbler should. Now, our last night in the MDR ended up being a pretty good meal. I had the fried calamari as a starter. It was nice and crispy, which is just how fried calamari should be. Now, the shrimp that came with it wasn't peeled, which was really weird because it was also battered. So once you peeled it, you lost all the batter and thus the flavor. Plus, there was no sauce to go with any of it. Where's the dipping sauce? Maybe that's just an American thing and nobody else does dipping sauce. Mom had the spanakopita, which she said was really good, but she wished there had been more sauce with that. A lack of sauce seemed to be an issue sometimes. For my main, I chose the lasagna. It was good enough that I ate all of it, but it tasted dark to me and a little like Chef Boyardee. I would have expected more from an Italian cruise line. I don't know how to explain what I mean exactly by food tasting dark, but the best example would be carrots. Raw carrots are very bright with a touch of sweetness, but cooked carrots taste just dark to me, and I don't like them. We both chose the tiramisu for our dessert, and it was good and had this fancy presentation. This was the first time Mom had had a set dining time, and the first time I had done so in quite a while. Normally, we would choose anytime or your time dining so that we're not beholden to a specific dining time. However, MSC only offers early and late seating. Now, we went with the early seating and didn't find that it caused us any real issues, but it could have if we had chosen to stay out at port later. There are benefits to having a set dining time because you end up having the same table and waiters throughout your cruise. You always know where you're going to sit, and a good wait staff is going to learn your preferences. It didn't take them long to realize that Mom wanted a wine, and I went with a strongbow ale every night. Unfortunately, there's no bar service in the MDR. That was new for us. I usually like to get a Long Island or some other cocktail with my meal. I'm used to cruise lines. They don't have a bar in the MDR, but they have one nearby, so they send out to have that bar create any kind of drinks that are ordered inside the MDR. But that wasn't the case on MSC. Our only options were wines and bottled beers. So do you prefer a set dining time or a flexible dining time, like anytime or your time dining? Let me know in the comments. There are good reasons for both. I think a set dining time is great if you get a good table location and good wait staff. But if you're at a shared table with people you don't get along with, or you're stuck in the corner somewhere, you might not be able to get a new table and you get stuck with that all week long. I've had both some great table mates that became friends with, and I've been stuck in a corner with grumpy waitstaff and a couple of crude guests. Of course, if you have a table in a bad location, you can ask to be moved, but there's no guarantee that they can accommodate you. Luckily, we were given our own table without the need to ask for it. This seems standard on MSC. Maybe lines are starting to realize that most people prefer not to eat with strangers and are getting away from those shared tables. We still need to discuss the buffet and what we thought of MSC's food overall. But first, if you enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something, consider subscribing with the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any future posts. The main dining also served lunch, but after our breakfast ordeal, we chose to stick with the buffet. It's also quicker. Normally, we rarely go to the buffet on a cruise. I don't like buffets in general, even on land. They're anxiety inducing for me. You have to walk around, figure out what all's available, what you want to eat. I find that stressful, especially if it's very crowded and you're trying to get around the line. It's very frustrating to have to wait in these long lines just to grab one thing. That's often a problem. Like, I only go in the morning. I just want to grab a muffin, and then I'm having to wait in this long line. Then if you forget something, you have to go right back and wait in that line again. Plus, I think buffets are unsanitary. Pretty sure they are where the majority of diseases are spread on a cruise ship. So as I said, we normally avoid the buffet most of the time. On most cruises, I might run in for a muffin or a bagel in the morning if there isn't time for brunch, or I don't just pick up a pastry at the coffee shop, which is something that's lacking on the Euribia. You can get espressos and Americanos in most bars, but I really miss my iced coffees. Moving on. But with there not being any other options for lunch except for the MDR, we found ourselves in the buffet almost every single day. In fact, I think it was every day. Thankfully, the Euribia's buffet was laid out well with various stations, so guests aren't forced through one long line. I've had that happen before on some cruise ships. Now, while the food might change, the stations themselves remained the same, so if you were headed in for pizza, you knew where it was. There was one station for salads, one that always had a few pre-made sandwiches, and more. Of course, there was a dessert station. There was a reasonable variety of foods to choose from, and almost everything I tried was good. One of my favorite things to get was the soft pretzels from the bread station. I would get one and put it in my backpack to snack on later. And since there weren't any places to grab an included snack between meals, this was a nice option. And let's be honest, I love soft pretzels. I've heard a lot of people say that MSC's pizza is among the best at sea, but I thought it was just okay. I think the same thing about Carnival's and Norwegian's pizza. Probably a lot of it has to do with my preference for an original crust instead of a thin crust. It makes sense that cruise lines use thin crust. They could cook the pizza faster, but I just don't like it as well. Now, I usually like a good buffet salad, but the ranch dressing they had wasn't to my liking. However, I am pretty picky about my ranch dressing, so I may not be the best judge of that. The dessert selection was pretty robust. I only got dessert a couple of times, but I would bring back several options for Mom and me to try out. There was never any that I didn't like, just some that I like better than others. Now, my favorite part of the buffet was the table bar service. Not only do they have a bar in the buffet, something I have never seen before, but they also have a button that you can push to call a bar waiter to your table so you can order without going to the bar. Like the other bars and lounges on the ship, there was also a QR code to scan for the drink menu. Now, this worked really well for us. There was only one time when it took longer than it should for our drinks to arrive. They didn't even show up until after we were done eating. Of course, we were just getting Strongbow ales, so there was no need for the bar waiter to wait for bartenders to make up a cocktail for us. They could just go in and grab it themselves. Weirdly, I saw people that would just stand in line at the bar, and I don't know why they chose to do that when they could order from their table. The one time we splurged was on gelato. After passing by all those flavors of gelato all week, we finally decided to get a scoop. How do you go on an Italian ship and not get gelato? Now, Mom went with the dulce de leche, and I went with the cheesecake. Honestly, it was good, but it tasted like ice cream. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but I guess more. I can always tell the difference between ice cream and custard. I expected to be able to tell the difference between ice cream and gelato. Overall, was MSC's food good or bad? For us, we didn't have any issues with the food. Some dishes were better than others, but there was always enough of it. The presentation was done well, and there was never a meal that I couldn't eat any of it. So far, MSC is only the third cruise line I've been on, but their MDR food is comparable to both Carnival and Norwegian, in my opinion. It will be interesting to try out foods on Celebrity and Princess, which I have my next 2 cruises booked with, and then make a comparison. The quality of food itself really wasn't the issue for us, but instead it was the lack of additional included restaurants, especially quick eat options. Now, I think that was one of the most disappointing parts of our cruise. We knew going in that that was going to be the case, but the reality of it changed how we ate more than I really was expecting. Maybe we're just used to all that Carnival offers when it comes to included dining, and admittedly, Carnival is the best at it. In comparison, having to choose between your standard MDR and buffet dining as your sole options seems constraining. So have you been on MSC before? What are your thoughts about their food? Do you think that it's comparable to other lines? Do you like it? Do you not like it? How do you feel about only MDR and buffet being included? Let me know. Drop your comments below. Well, are you ready for more information on cruising? Why not stick around and check out this video and then come back for more information designed to help you have an amazing cruise. Have a blessed week, everyone.